Okay, so we're recording and welcome everybody. And that's how I feel from Bertolt Brecht. Just me and Mackie the knife. So I wanted to welcome everybody to this is our third meeting. We have a smaller crew today because the link to get on was so long. I think some people lost some numbers and letters. And to just tell you that this is a really crazy time. This is it's a lockdown, continuing shelter in place. My friend Nick just came back for immediate service, and he's going to, you animal communicators there, if you could just let him know that he has to be a silent partner here, that would be great. So we are in lockdown, we are in shelter in place, and some of us are working a lot, and some of us are not working a lot, but working some. And the thing that's really very amazing to me is that there are no boundaries. The boundaries are all blurred. The shift has occurred, we're shifting, but the boundaries are so confusing and they're moving back and forth. And it's this uncertainty of the boundaries that I feel is adding to the pandemic of fear. There's the pandemic of the virus, but more than that, there's a global feeling of fear that kind of wafts through things. And that wafting through is not with us only, but it's with the plants and it's with the animals. And the animals, and we'll each talk about how we've been dealing with the animals and how the animals are dealing with us. Here's Linda. And I wanted to actually just look at the information overload and to tell everybody from my point of view that there is not one truth happening. There are many truths happening. And with that, it's all of the information where we have to be. So there's tremendous suffering and pain going on with some individuals, for which my heart goes out. And then there's tremendous creativity and opportunity with others. And it depends on where you live. It depends on your economic status. It depends on the color of your skin. I started carrying my license because as I'm out in the sun more, I look less and less white. And there have been different instances with people wearing masks that if you're a person of color, you get sorted out quickly. So that's happening at the same time that everything else is happening. And we're looking at how to move through this, to take that opportunity and to go through the heart and through love. So the first thing I wanted to share, and I'll make this as brief as I can, is I wanted to have this meeting on the new moon because the new moon is usually a place for imagination and for setting intention for the month. This is the new moon in Taurus, which should be very grounding. And with this very grounding, we also have challenging aspects with the sun and Uranus, which makes things very volatile. So things, whoever has the bird that's talking, can you mute yourself? Or we can keep the bird in there if it makes people laugh. And it's just a very interesting time. Every 2 seconds, I have to ground myself. So what I wanted to do was I'm grounding myself with my feet right now on the ground and breathing. The abdominal breathing is very important right now, I find. And I wanted to draw your attention to Lee Holden has a wonderful Qigong video for helping the lungs and the immune system. And one of the things he does is to awaken the lungs. So you can do this with me. And you put your hands like little peckings underneath your collarbone area, which is the beginning of the lung meridian, between the collarbone and the shoulder. And you move your wings. So it's backward circle. And see how that lifts your diaphragm and makes you breathe. Now go the other way. Nick, you're not doing it with me yet. And now make noise. Or anything that makes you laugh. Because it's up to you to make yourself laugh in order to get out of the heaviness that may be around you. And you need a vision, and that's one of the visions. I'll go like this in the middle of walking down the street, and it just makes me smile. And the way you can do that with your animals is have them in the room with you. Nick, I want you to know, just left, he was mad. But I've been finding that the animals need support on the neck to hold themselves up. And that energy is getting stuck between the shoulder blades and right beneath the shoulder blades. So the breath, again, is having an issue. It's the grieving, but it's also heat can come up really quickly and cause seizures like you were talking about, Mary. And it can also cause irritability and neediness beyond belief. I'm here, listen to me now, listen to me now, listen to me now. And the animals are really demanding on that. Hey, here I am, because they also are figuring out their boundaries. So in supporting the neck, if you cannot do it, holding the neck because they feel like they can't tolerate it, putting your hand just energetically there and breathing, and then again toward the hip area so that you're stretching the spine. And for some animals, it's the lumbar area. Some, it's the actual over the sacrum. And it's kind of a stretch. And that enables the diaphragm to move and for the animals to feel that they could move, that they're not locked in. So that's what I wanted to say, and to also reiterate that the patients that I'm seeing or virtually seeing and talking to are having issues as far as being needy and demanding and being around, wanting touch and wanting to be present. And that is alternating with not breathing problems, not even anxiety, but a kind of depression. So next up is Mary.
Okay, now we're unmuted. All righty. And thank you for that demonstration, Cheryl, because as you were talking, my kitty Merlin hopped down and started stretching behind me, and he has asthma, so that was perfect. And he's already right next to me going, like, when are you going to do that to me? So he was energetically feeling all of that already. And talking about no boundaries. And happy Earth Day to everyone.
Yes, happy Earth Day.
I'm thrilled that we're doing this on Earth Day. I think that's a perfect day. And I forgot about the new moon, so that's absolutely perfect. But what I've seen with animals is also they are also picking up that fear. They want that neediness, that connection, the reassurance that everything's going to be okay. And I tell them, you know, ultimately we are going to be okay. It's just getting through this up and down and the upheaval of a different way of life. Change is hard for everyone. Change for animals is hard. And I have seen an increase in animals with seizures, surprisingly. I wasn't expecting that. And this morning when I was talking to a little Chihuahua who was having bad seizures, this was all new. This all started after the quarantine and after being in place. Never had them before, and it just started. But the mom was working from home, and around the computer a lot, a laptop, and the dad was working from home, also on a laptop. So it felt like the electric magnetic waves were really creating quite a havoc for this older animal. And so I made the recommendation of finding an EMF protector for the computers and for the dog. So we really do have to be mindful of the energy that we are now bringing home even more from people working. And there is a wonderful product from Glacier Peak Holistics. They do sell one, and Cheryl has one, but they're wonderful products that help with the EMFs to keep your animal protected and to keep you safe too. And I think the more we can protect ourselves from these right now, especially because the energy, what she was showing me was everything was very frazzled, and just working on calming down that energy field in the house, around, even with plants, and especially with our pets, of smoothing it over and picturing them, everything being smooth and flowing, really seems to help them quite a bit. So yeah, and I noticed you pulled out your little card.
Yes, my little card that's from Aries, and it's a wonderful protector, EMF protector that has mandalas on it. And it's very good at breaking up the EMF that's coming at me. And thank you for reminding me about that, because one of the things that came up was Bruce Lipton, the person who wrote Biology of Belief. And he's a parabiologist and has been very influential in doing a lot of research about how the brain cells are not just in your brain and your thoughts are in your guts and around. He was talking about the latest research where you could actually measure brain waves, not just with electrodes in the brain, but outside of the brain.
Wow.
So that with doing that, it makes you understand how your thoughts that go out into the universe are so important.
Very true. And the animals feel and pick up on all of that too, because they are just sponges for their people.
Yes, absolutely. And Mary, introduce yourself for the people who don't know you, please.
Oh, sorry. I'm Mary Argo. I'm an animal communicator that I've been doing this for more than 20 plus years. And I've taken other classes with flower essences, homeopathy, herbs, the whole gamut. And so I work with people and their animals over the phone, and I already self-distance. So for me, this isn't a change, which is lovely. But I do have to just remind people that we are all in this together. We can get through it, set a schedule, do a routine. It helps them, it helps their animals. And so they can be home all together as safely as possible.
Great.
Thank you.
And Rob, you're up next. If you can just introduce yourself. And also, if people feel that they need to make a comment about what someone says, unmute yourself and just do that, please. You're on, Rob.
Okay, I'm Rob Erdeman. I am a veterinarian, and I have been developing and practicing an alternative, quote unquote, alternative method for the past 30 years. It comes out of the Netherlands, and for those of us, there are only a few of us in the States who do it, but for those of us who do it, we sort of don't consider it alternative. We consider it more normal. The work that I do is really based that we have tremendous potential in us, as our animals have tremendous potential in us, and we've all been affected by the environment in maybe a negative way. And through our development sometimes hasn't been perfect, and a feature of our development is that our cells are rapidly dividing when we develop. And if we have negative experiences by not getting our needs met or not being safe, that has an influence on us in our lives. And one way of describing that is as a kind of crack in our foundation. And these horribly stressful times that we live in expose the cracks in our foundation. And I live in a very small community. We have 200 full-time residents, and we're sort of happily a little bit isolated. And I went into town today. Town is a market and a post office and a couple of non-functioning restaurants. And people are fatigued. And people are going about their business, but they're clearly fatigued and feeling lost. And of course, when we're fatigued and lost, our animals become untethered as well. And they can meet the cracks in their foundation, because it's been my experience as a vet that people consciously and subconsciously support their animals where they have these cracks in their foundation. And a lot of the fear, so there's the fatigue, but a lot of it is a fear for the future. And because all of a sudden the future is very unknown. Well, that's the nature of the future. The future is unknown. We think we can control it and we think we can predict it, but actually, I think that's a little bit of a fallacy. So I'm going to jump for a second. Fear is just a preponderance of fear, which has been exhausting. And I've heard people talk about fear as an illusion, or fear doesn't exist. And I want to throw in another way to describe fear. Fear is a feeling in the body that is a memory or a triggering of where we're not developed or where we've been unsafe or in danger in the past. And in the previous 2 sessions when we've been together, I talked about the here and now. And I know for myself, and I've seen it in my patients, that when our circumstances are good, and when I see everybody here and a lot of people I see, their circumstances are actually pretty okay. We're not suffering like people in New York City and some of the really hard hit areas. But we're stressed and have fear because of the instability and the unknown in the future. So the here and now exercises, I presented a couple of them in the previous 2 sessions. One is sitting on the hands. One is butt walking. I've been doing recently sitting on one hand and putting the other hand over the shoulder. Supports us to be in the here and now, because our shoulders can really anchor our here and now. And when we come into the here and now, we can really, for me, I can touch some happiness. That actually, I'm in a beautiful place.
Oh, show the picture of where you are, Rob.
Okay. Can you see?
Yes.
Okay. So if I'm not happy, I'm not in the here and now, at least for my circumstances. But my future's unknown. Do I get to stay in this beautiful place for the rest of my life? Maybe, maybe not. But if I stay in the here and now, I'm happy. And then I can move forward into an unknown future. I want to do one other thing really quickly. I really believe in people. I believe more in people like us than some other people, but that's my own. That inside of us, in our cellular makeup, we can reach our being, and our beings are pure. And when we can reach our beings, then we have a possibility to express that to the outside world. And then we're really good for the world and the animals. So I want to just do another really quick exercise. And I think, can you see me?
Yes.
So I'm bending my knees and I'm rounding my back. And hopefully I'm keeping my head and neck parallel to the floor and rounding my back and with my arms as if I'm hugging a tree. That exercise is helpful for us to meet our inner world. Then we can do an exercise where we arch the back, arms back like we're flying, butt up and neck up. And that helps to bring our inner world to the outer world. So in a way that we have a way to become more our nature, to meet our nature, and then have a natural expression of it in the outside world. And my experience is animals love that. When we are what we are in our nature, they like it. So, okay, that's what I have. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Can I add something before we go to the next person? Your exercises reminded me of a Qigong exercise that I do every day. That is actually hugging yourself like this and pushing your belly out to your Ming Men and bringing your pelvis tilted a little bit forward so that you're rounding your back and pushing out the Ming Men, your lumbar 1, 2, 2, 3 area, and breathing in and out. And then coming to a neutral, and then coming back, lifting and arching the other way. And it's a soaring from a bear to a soaring crane. So that's what your exercise reminded me of.
Well, when I see you do that exercise, what I see is you're activating some of the same systems in the body.
Perfect.
You know, and it's the body that really supports us. So.
Thank you. I love your exercises. Kathy, you're up next, and please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kathy Malkin. I'm an animal communicator. I'm an animal Reiki teacher and practitioner. I'm also a humane educator, and I also offer pet loss grief support to people who have lost their loved ones. And I'm excited that we're here today on Earth Day, celebrating the 50th anniversary. I actually ran a 1-hour get-together, if you will, with people to come celebrate Mother Earth and the animals. But really, in this time, what I've been guided to share with people to help themselves and the animals is to really feel their heart connection and to feel connected through our heart, because that's where I feel the universal life intelligence lives, and that's where we connect, whether it's telepathically or even with my Reiki practice. And part of that is to help us remember, because I don't believe animals forget that they're spirit first, but we as humans forget that we're spirit first. We forget the anima and animal, and anima is Latin for soul, spirit, life, breath. And coming back to our spirit is also about coming to the here and now and being present, which is where the animals live. And when we go off in our head down the road or we're into the future, we're no longer present. And that makes them uncomfortable, the animals. So part of why I've been offering a lot of free get-togethers virtually is to help not only people feel connected to other humans, but to increase their connection with their animals so that they can create peace and compassion and balance and love, because that takes us to a higher vibration. And I believe that's where the animals live and where we should live, but we've got our human mind that gets in the way. So for me, working with the animals recently, I will echo a lot of what others have said in terms of that they're demanding, they need more reassurance, that they really are clingy and anxious, or they just don't quite understand where their person is, and then that energy where their human is, whether it's fear or grief or being out of their daily routine, then emanates and radiates out to them, and it's confusing for them. Just like Cheryl was saying about the boundaries, when our boundaries melt, so does the boundaries for the animals, and everybody becomes lost. And right now, I do believe we're grieving, and it's my experience we grieve when we have change. And this is a big, big change. Now, I mean, for me, like Mary, I work virtually most of the time out of the house. That isn't the change. But the fatigue of this current of fear, worry, you can't get near somebody that you love and want to be close to. I mean, I'm grateful I have my animals that I can be physical with. But even at this point, we've gone through, I mean, going to the store for me was so stressful. I had to remember my mask. I had to remember my gloves, remember not to touch this, not to touch that. When I got home, do you clean things or do you let? And the animals pick up on it. So part of what I'm trying to do is give people tools to, and I also try to take a page out of my own book, to be in a more peaceful, calm place, even if it's just for the moment. And what people have reported to me is as we do Reiki together or share meditations together or even just communicate with the animals, they come around, they relax, and they support us. And we really do need to get out of our way right now, but it's hard. I mean, so many people are suffering. And that to me as somebody who's very empathic and a caregiver, it's exhausting. So one of the messages besides connection through the heart is to make sure you take care of yourself. You know, I said this the last time. You got to put the oxygen mask on yourself to take care of yourself. Because if you're not there for yourself, you are not going to be there for your animals. And right now, not only do we need to trust ourselves, but we need to be there with a solid foundation, hopefully not with the cracks for the animals. But they do want to help us. They're sitting there going, take a page out of my book. I'm here to help you through this. And a lot of it is just staying present and not going, like I said, down the road or stay in the past, but just be here. And as I love the way Rob said in that moment, you can find happiness. Doesn't mean that the world is in a great place, but you can find some joy, you can find some compassion. And the animals just really want us to really embrace that because it makes us better human beings instead of human doings. So I hope everybody stays safe, stays well, but give your animals a voice. They really need and want to be heard, and the wisdom that they share with us is invaluable. And we haven't listened in a long time. A lot of us do. I mean, especially those of us who are here, but they will show us the way. I believe that with all my heart. So give them a voice, let them lead you to a much more peaceful, loving place.
There doesn't seem to be an issue around that voice. Thank you, Kathy. That was beautiful. Thank you. And thank you for giving the classes. I totally appreciate it.
Well, I just feel like this is an opportunity. There's so much going on to share love and light. And was like one day I woke up and I just heard the animals say, do it. And I wasn't necessarily very comfortable doing it in the beginning, but now it just feels right to call people together and help them feel their connection.
Absolutely. And part of the reason I wanted to get this together today was we have the ability to hold the light. And if we can hold the light and help share it with others, that's part of what we can do.
Well, and I think part of it is not only holding the light, but to recognize that we are the light
Absolutely.
and to connect with our inner light in our inner spirit. And I think the animals have that, but they're going, hey, you do too. Come on, wake up.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Linda, are you here? Linda?
Yep.
Good,
Here.
you're on now.
Ah, well,
Introduce yourself and also introduce Ben.
I'm Linda Wells. I'm a holistic veterinarian, and this is Benjamin, my friend. And yes, I have noticed, the continued sort of desire for contact and maybe a little more demandingness of most of the animals, and the sense of overwhelm and uncertainty in the people, and sort of a disconnection from things around them. I think masks aren't helping with that. It's very strange not to be able to see our faces, and I think the animals are noticing that as well. It's really hard to lick someone's nose when there's a mask on there. And I found one of the things that's helping sort of pull me out of,
Talk louder, Linda.
one of the things that's helping pull me out of a gloom or overwhelm is just small creative projects. And I've been putting together a book for my little sister of poems and illustrating it with photographs from my life. And she's 18, so it's a kid. And so I thought, besides the creative project art, that I would read a poem that I think is pretty good for Earth Day. But hang on, Benjamin. Has to go down now. Okay. All right. Yeah. He wants a snack. I shouldn't have said that word. Okay. So this is a poem by John O'Donohue that's called Equilibrium Blessing. Okay, I'm gonna increase it. Like the joy of the sea coming home to shore, may the relief of laughter rinse through your soul. As the wind loves to call things to dance, may your gravity be lightened by grace. Like the dignity of moonlight restoring the earth, may your thoughts incline with reverence and respect. As water takes whatever shape it is in, so free may you be about who you become. As silence smiles on the other side of what's said, may your sense of irony bring perspective. As time remains free of all that it frames, may your mind stay clear of all it names. May your prayer of listening deepen enough to hear in the depths the laughter of God. So that seemed appropriate for Earth Day. Yeah. And that, I think, is it.
Did you want to mention anything about you and Katie?
Katie. Well, she's, yeah, she's good. I'm noticing just how sensitive she is to.
Katie is a horse, everybody.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Katie is a very sensitive, very intelligent horse, and very challenging, and well, in some ways. And yeah, so it's hard because I think I've been somewhat irritable, and she is I've noticed how I have to be very clear with her, and not be too it's very subtle with her what's too much. And when it's too much, she kind of completely lost it yesterday and raced around like a maniac and got tons of exercise, but a little more frantic than I would like, because I made her turn around, and it was it was confusing. I gave her mixed messages, and I realized later what I had done, but she was very upset by being corrected. So that, I guess, is my Katie update. I apologized to her and told her I knew what happened and I'd try to figure it out. So, yeah.
I asked you, thank you. I asked you about Katie because we have dogs and cats in our houses. Some of us have birds and small animals, even smaller animals. And to be in the presence of a horse during this time, because I miss going out to the horses, to the barns, to my clients.
Yeah.
But to be in the presence of a horse right now, that's really magnifying so much of what's going on, because they're so big and they just show us.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very much magnified. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they really are noticing that we are not quite ourselves, and so yeah, they get that. Yeah.
And I figured that boundary issues would be really big with horses right now because of our boundary issues.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just thinking, yeah. Well, and I had set a boundary for her, and it really pissed her off, and she went nuts last night. So yeah.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is if we could hear, did you have more to say, Linda? I didn't want to cut you off.
I think that's it.
I'd like to call on Marlene Smith and to say some stuff, and then after that we can have a discussion for all of those who want to stay on. Marlene, please introduce yourself. You're up next.
Okay, see if this will work. Can you see me? Because I don't see myself.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, okay, good. I'm Marlene Smith, and I'm a retired veterinarian. I practice integrative veterinary medicine, which started off with homeopathy, which I never really formally studied, but it came to me in the form of genetic memory. Although there were no memories in my own family, but it must have been cultural, coming from Europe, coming from Holland, Rob. And so I've always thought in the form of homeopathy, and I've always had a great interest. And homeopathic remedies, what the remedy to use, often came to me and sometimes still comes to me from nowhere. So that's always been fascinating. I was one of those people that always ask why. I'm one of those curious kids that always had to know why. I remember at vet school, I would drive my professors absolutely nuts because they would talk about a disease, let's say distemper, and I wanted to know, how come if you have 10 puppies in a litter, 6 will die of distemper, but the other 4 will recover, or the other 4 don't even get affected. So it is not 100% infectious. What happened with the other 4 that didn't get infected? And they would tell me just because. About 34 years ago or 36 years ago, I added traditional Chinese medicine to my toolbox, which initially was very difficult for me because it is the Taoist philosophy of life is very different. It introduces and it accepts the physical and the non-physical as being on a part of the whole. And not only do you switch between physical and non-physical, but the interaction between the physical and the non-physical actually makes it whole and creates life. And then later on, I added things like chiropractics and herbal medicine, Chinese herbal medicine. So that is what I used to practice. And just like Rob, I live normally in a sort of an isolation. We live out in the country and on 5 acres. And being retired, this is my normal life. I potter around in my garden. I go for a walk with my dogs and see my neighbors once in a while, but that hasn't really had as much an influence on me as it has had in the people that live in the city and are really locked down in the houses, because I just spent all day today outside. And in the last 6 weeks, I only come inside to sleep, and that's about it. Having said all that, I certainly felt I was going in a free fall in the first few weeks of this COVID thing, and the change, the impact, the thought of the future, the thought of where we were going, that was hugely fearful. I also noticed huge waves of grief coming up. I got a lot of grief coming up for people in things like concentration camps. Of course, that for me is only one generation away, coming from Holland. I had grief of women being tortured. I had the grief of memories to the Middle Ages and women being burned alive because the church wanted to get hold of their property. I had grief over the future of the planet, over the climate change, over everything. And I felt contracted. I felt everything just came inside me. And the interesting thing is that in the last 2 weeks, I am helping a veterinary colleague who's just taken the course in veterinary chiropractics. And I'm helping him to actually put it into practice. So taking his hands and putting it on the animals and trying to teach him what it feels like. And it was stunning for me how many tight tendons and back pain, lower back pain, sacral pain, some lower neck pain. It was strange, especially because I felt very contracted and my muscles, when I exercised, ran or did agility with my dog, I could hardly sleep at night because all my muscles and tendons were so tight. And then yesterday, I got an interesting message about, and I emailed it to all of you guys. One of my human homeopathic colleagues came up with a general remedy for the grief. He lives in Europe, Germany, and he also noticed the grief and contraction. And he came up with a homeopathic remedy, creosotum. No, sorry, not creosotum. Causticum. And causticum, interestingly enough, and Mary, you may be interested, causticum is about contraction of the tendon, about grief, about letting go, and also about seizures. Unexpected, never seen seizures before. So I felt that was extremely fascinating if we superimpose this, what is happening in our culture. We have walked down a path where we have disconnected from the heart. We have disconnected from the spirit. We have disconnected from our relationship to nature that will help us to find our path. And we have been walking around like blindfolded. And we have abused the environment. We have abused our privileges on this planet. A lot of people don't even see how beautiful it is. And right now, where I live, it is stunning. Just an hour ago, I went for a walk with my dogs close to the river, and we have a whole field of beautiful pink fawn lilies and trilliums and wood violets. And it's just so stunningly beautiful. So just like what Rob says, I have more in the last week. I'm feeling a wave of gratitude, of love for this planet. And now my curiosity takes over again. So if this COVID experience we collectively go through, if this is an experience of the lung, and it is because it is a respiratory illness, and it sometimes also affects the intestine with diarrhea. Not everybody gets or respiratory disease, lower respiratory disease. This is about the lung, and the intestine is about letting go of the old air, letting go of all the stuff that is processed in the blood and then is exchanged in the lung, and we let it go. And then we inhale fresh oxygen, new life, new energy. The same with the gut. We're letting go after this process what we don't need. And we absorb nutrients that will feed our life. So realizing that, it made me feel more optimistic. It made me feel I don't need to worry, and I don't need to plan about the future. I don't need to be afraid of the future, because it is the Zen of existence. It is there. We just have to let go of the old. And grieving is about letting go of pain. And after that, once we have let that go, we can bring in the love, joy, empathy, gratefulness for this planet. So all that is our next future. And I'm quite excited about that we actually are not in a squeeze. We are not in jail. We are not locked up. We are in front of a new portal. And especially people like that are here present right now, we can do that. And especially the animals. My animals have been telling me every day when we go for a walk, yes, you are here. We're in the now. Let's enjoy it. And they're so grateful that we pay more attention to them and that we are getting into being in the now. So basically that is my message that I get from the animals. Yes, they have contraction. Yes, they have pain. So do we. And we have to live through this with a trust and confidence that once we enter through this door, this portal, we'll enter a beautiful new world. I feel very confident about that.
And we're all going to move to Vancouver Island now.
Yes. Yeah, we don't have many cases. It is just like where Rob lives. When I do a town trip, and I had to do a quick town trip this morning, that scares me. It's like people walking around like zombies. They're nervous, they're tense, they're irritable, they have a short fuse. It's scary. And then as soon as I come home and I enter my own little bubble, I think, whew, I'm so lucky.
Yes, you are, Marlene, and thank you for that beautiful message. Absolutely beautiful. And I'm going to blab for a minute, but then I want everybody else to chime in, please. And for me, it's really important to see how those of us who are with nature more than with humans are having an easier time of it, of being in the here and now, of being in the nature. Whereas if you're in a more urban situation, and I'm in a more urban situation, although I'm not in San Francisco, I'm in a town situation where I'm very thankful that the beach, the Bay Beach, is still open as long as you stay 6 feet away from people. But today it was quite crowded. So I'm just kind of looking at that. But being with the energy of other people, this is my first question to you guys. How do you maintain, or how do we maintain, because it's not you and me, or you and us and them and us. How do we maintain our optimistic feeling of being in the here and now? Because as I pass someone in a mask 6 feet from me, I get this not such a good feeling. And I have to go deep inside and ask for assistance to smile. And I believe that those of us who are in contact with other humans, that we need to somehow have a quick response to be able to continue being in the portal, because we all know the changes here. So I throw that question out to people.
My response to it is that we need to connect with our inner light. And what I personally do, which it's challenging because of the fear, but I try to let it go and I just try to radiate light and love and stay in it. And when I find myself going out and I recognize I'm out, I just bring it back. And it's constant. It's easy to get ungrounded. It's easy to get unfocused. But for me right now, the message I'm receiving from the animals is we have to connect with our light. And as Marlene was saying, I think that light helps bring us through the portal. But it's hard. Boy, it's hard. But I think that that's the challenge, is to stay in the light.
I agree with Kathy. For me, every time that I feel that, Cheryl, and I was very much reminded of that this morning, I had to wait and then line up to get into the shop. I just needed a little valve for my irrigation system, which of course they didn't have, as if I found out. But when I felt those emotions coming up, when I looked at people that looked like I was in a weird horror show or horror movie, I practiced a lot of mindfulness. Okay, this is coming up for me right now. It's not that person's problem. It is my own problem because that is how I feel. So this is my opportunity now to let go of that feeling, as you do with letting your breath out. So that is what I do. I relax my shoulders, let my breath out, and then I, just what Kathy said, I really try to project love, kindness, friendliness, happiness, and joy.
And do your eyes smile?
Yes, my eyes smile. Thank goodness we don't need to wear a mask, so you can actually physically smile. Some people have a mask, but I didn't wear a mask. And I think it is a really good exercise because, as you said, not only are we at that portal, but if we want to go through that door, we have to practice that ourselves. So that is the best way to be mindful about your own feeling, being aware of it, recognizing it, then letting it go, and then inhale fresh love and radiate that.
Yeah.
Is anyone else saying something?
Oh, well, I was going to mention, I really love what Marlene had to say, and Kathy, about shining from the inside out. And I've actually had the experience of trying to smile to everyone who has a mask. And I've seen people actually take a deep breath and go, like just getting recognized because they're nervous. And I get a better response from people in a mask when I try and smile than those not wearing them. They're just more focused. But it's been really interesting. And of course, my water, coffee, everything I drink always has flower essences in it. And I also feel very blessed that I ordered up a mask made from a gal on next door who's from our neighborhood who was volunteering. So I could feel the love in that mask alone. And so just, having little positive things like that has really helped. But yeah, smiling with the eyes has been amazing for other people and just getting them to breathe and smile. And I've actually felt more connection with that.
Oh, great. Yes, the smiling with the eyes, and everybody has the designer masks. That's going to be the next big product. And have you noticed that because we're having to order online or not be able to go through the stores, and many of the shops that you go to, you have to decide what you want beforehand and tell them at the counter they get it for you and bring it back, as at Pet Food Express, for example. And I realized that so much of shopping has to do with the enjoyment of the experience of shopping. I'm not a big shopper, but I understand people's fascination with it because it's an enjoyment of walking through and experiencing. But if you don't have that experience, then the products aren't that important. It's a very interesting kind of juxtaposition. And yes, I agree with everything that everybody is saying. I also wanted to say that for the animals, what I do for Nick to make him feel really secure is I look at what makes my animal friend the happiest. And Nick would rather play than eat or get strokes for how handsome he is, how athletic he is, what a great hunter he is, how he's so healthy, how he's got a good voice. So I brush him and I keep telling him that over and over. And yet my other friend who's got an animal who lives for treats, she tells him, oh, I'm going to give you this great treat, and then gives him one. And this makes the animal very happy and very secure. So does anyone else have a story like around that?
I have another kitty very similar to Nick. She'd rather play. And she has been, and I don't mean driving us crazy, but she wants to play all day. And because we're home, and even if I'm on the phone, she is meowing, and it's like, no, I want to play. I want to play. I want to play now. And I want to have my kill, and I want to have my snack. And she could do it 12 hours a day. And, she just gets such joy out of it. And she also hears us laughing, and you can tell that she's really trying to get us laughing even more through that.
I think that too.
Yep.
Well, I feel the animals very much want us to be more playful. And
Yes.
that's another coping mechanism, if you will, is play is a great equalizer. It builds confidence. It relaxes us. It makes us childlike. It keeps us in the moment. And I know in my household, my dog Bodhi now insists before he goes for a walk, he wants to chase the ball. In part because when he brings it back, he gets a little cookie, and that makes him very, very happy. Although it does not make him very happy, he can't go into Pet Food Express anymore and steal food. But we're trying to, and I come up with different games for us to play. I'm hiding treats. I'm teaching him new tricks. For the cats, I got a great tip the last time we met, which is they're eating more catnip. And that's helping them. I think it's helping them not only with their attitude and to lighten the mood, but I also think it's helping them with their digestion. God willing, they're going to turn 19 in a couple of weeks. So I'm very blessed to have them. And my little Siamese the last few days has been acting like a kitten, getting into trouble and mischief and everything else. So that message to me is, I gotta lighten up and have some fun and play. And it's not to say that I don't have my moments, but that mindfulness, they just bring me back and say, come on, this is time to play and lighten up and smell the roses. My roses are blooming like I've never seen them before.
Yes,
the hawk that flies around is just so majestic. And those are the things that they want us all to do.
And the hummingbird comes and visits me. And every morning I say, hi, Hummer, lives next door.
I have a Hummer that takes a bath in my water fountain outside all the time. It's wonderful. And the other day, the hummingbird brought a friend, another hummingbird.
Great. Does anyone have something that you'd like to add before we end this council? And any ideas? As we are all staying in the present and being grateful for everything we have now, we're still moving forward and we're still moving in this. So any tips on anything you want to add that we didn't cover, please?
Yeah, I have noticed I've always had a problem to visualize what would this new world look like. So what I do now, I take notice of the fact that the flowers are more vibrant now than I've ever seen them before. I like that. I want to keep that.
Yes.
The air is cleaner and less polluted. I like that. I want to keep that. We actually hear no traffic at the moment, so it is silent. It is so silent and quiet. You can see and hear the birds singing and the frogs singing. I like that. So I have already a little list of things that I like in my current experience that I want to keep into the next world.
I have some similar observations. There are more animals in my garden and they're hanging around.
Yes.
I have a fox in my garden and I think she's a female. But when I come out of the house and she's there, she stays there now. And so I have to kind of feel myself and where I am and receive from her. And not only her, but birds, lizards. I'll be sitting on my deck and the lizards don't run away like they used to. I like it. And I don't really have a suggestion, but I notice it and I appreciate it.
Me too.
So.
Thank you.
I don't want to interrupt there again, but what you just said, Rob, brought back a memory. Years ago, I was on a very backcountry hike, several days away from civilization, humans, and I went out on a little exploratory trip to find the route for the next day. And I came across a big black bear that was grazing in a little patch in the forest. And I stopped, and the bear actually communicated with me. Kathy, you might enjoy that. And I asked the bear if I just could sit there and enjoy his beauty. The dog was with me, and I held the dog, and we both sat there. And the bear looked at me, and he gave me permission to be there. And I suddenly got this overwhelming joy, feeling of incredible love, of being hugged by the earth, by Mother Nature, and being told, you are an earthling, and you are, I love you as much as everything else. And I felt so accepted and so loved. And when I talk about that portal and focusing on the love, I think if we do what Rob said, observe nature, respect nature, love nature, exude love and gratefulness, we'll have the possibility to experience a feeling of that we actually belong, a feeling of love that is so deep that most of us have probably never really experienced it. That is the last thing that I wanted to say.
And that's how we're going to end it. You can't end it with anything better than that, Marlene. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you,
And
Cheryl.
until next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Many blessings. Stay heart connected.
Yes, good night and thank you.
Blessings.
Many blessings.